week.
There. Got it. All right. Welcome, everyone. I am the anime dad. You might have forgotten my voice because I haven't been here. But Bjorvio has been holding down the fort, kicking booty, and taking names. But I'm back. I am good, and I am very, very happy to be with my co host, Shigaraki. Shigaraki, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. I was so surprised you asked me to be on here on such
Hmm.
short notice, but don't worry. I'll always make time to be on the Anime Dudes podcast.
Good, good, good. Yeah, no, you've got a podcast voice, and while I was watching My Hero Academia, I just thought to myself, my goodness, this guy is so wonderful, and I need him on my show.
Tell you what, because you're so amazing and you understand how this world works and know who is the rightful heir,
Hmm.
I'll let you be an honorary general in the League of Villains. How does that sound to you?
I appreciate that. I appreciate that, but I actually ate one of All Might's hairs this morning, and it's not an earthquake, by the way, at my property. The washing machine is going off like crazy, but it's okay. But I ate one of All Might's hairs, Shigaraki, and unfortunately, I feel the power, building up in me. It wasn't actually All Might. It was the guy who stated that he was All Might. He was a homeless person. He looked like he had spiky hair, and his hair tastes like whiskey. But I feel stronger already, so I can't join your league.
Oh, that's just small power. Don't worry, he works on the street every single Wednesday. We know him. We're good friends. He kind of has something similar to All for One, except all it does is he builds up gas inside of him. So then when he punches you, it's just an explosion of gas. The more beans he eats, the more powerful he becomes. Don't worry, we've already tried to recruit him several times. You're fine. The only thing that might happen is you have to run to the bathroom every once in a while. It happened to Dobby like twice last week.
I apologize for any weird noises then that show up in the show. I'm very sorry. But it is great to be here with my co-host Bjorvio. Shigaraki, you can head off now because your voice is not actually podcast material. It is more taking over the world, evil attack material. But yeah, great to be here with Bjorvio. Bjorvio, what do you have to say?
Man, I am so glad I don't have to listen to that guy anymore. I mean, can you man, I'd much rather be doing this with you than this guy. I mean, all he talks about is taking over the world, and then he talks about burgers with no buns. Like, you can only talk about those things so many times before they get boring. So, no, it's so much better to have you back. You're so much better than he is, and I am so happy to be here with my proper co-host to talk about proper co-hosty things.
Co-hosty things, and that is on the list today. But before we get into that, let's talk about our improv questions, which I have not been planning all morning because they are improv. And I will start, and then you go next, and we do one by one improv questions. My first improv question to you: you are a door, and as a door, you have a handle that is gold to the touch and slightly large. The handle itself is located on top of a mountain, Mount Doom. What is your crew to get that handle, and why are you guys wearing pink?
So the reason that we're wearing pink, there's is because we recruited Raptalia from Rising of the Shield Hero, and so in order to make sure that she feels at home and at peace, we just decided, you know what, everyone, we're gonna wear pink.
Smart.
Zenitsu looks a little bit weird in pink, but you know what? That's okay. That's okay. He'll get over it. He's asleep most of the time anyway. He won't even notice. Inosuke, on the other hand, loves pink. Gohan doesn't really care. You know, he's doing it for his daughter, and Mirio just wears whatever he wants to wear. So, but this crew is gonna go up and they're gonna get this doorknob, and let me tell you, I'm in trouble if I'm the doorknob.
All right, what's your question for me?
Okay, so there is a state in the United States that nobody ever that there's there's 50, I think 52 territories, maybe 51. I lost track. That no one really goes to all that much. It's what we call a flyover state. You really only go there in order to, you're flying in an airplane over it, but no one actually like goes there all that much. What do you think their favorite anime is?
Well, because no one goes there that much, they are locked in a cycle of nostalgia. So, to be honest, it's going to be Bleach, because I have seen Bleach myself, and people who talk about Bleach as being their favorite anime or their most watched anime seem to be people who are locked in that cycle of nostalgia. So, yeah, that's why I chose Bleach for a flyover state, and I'd love to visit one of those flyover states. Do you have to just jump out of a airplane, skydive to get there, or?
I mean, you could drive, you could take a bus, you could take an airplane. Some of them you could go on a river cruise. So that'd be kind of dope. I'm down for a river cruise if you are.
That sounds great. As long as we're wearing pink speedos, I'm happy.
Obviously.
Yeah, sorry, shouldn't have said that. That makes stupid that I mentioned it actually. All right, my second improv question. Let's say you open a book. Now, in that book, there are little people that come to life, but there's no words on the paper at all. All right, the book itself is 3 pages with 3 civilizations. What are the civilizations, and what do they ask you to do?
So there's 3 civilizations, is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. Well, that's easy. The first one is they ask me to help solve some of the marital issues that are going on in this group because living in a book, you're in a confined space, you're very tired, so I'm like, oh, don't worry, I'll help you with your marriage. Never go to bed angry. That's what they teach. And then the second one is they ask me to teach them to play guitar, and I have to disappoint them because I don't know how to play guitar, so I tell them I know a guy that can help me out, and they'll be like, okay, that sounds a little bit better. And then the third one is they ask me to create a random backstory for their D&D characters, but I have no prep time in order to do it. And I'm like, it's like I was made for this. I have a series on TikTok where I talk about this. So then I go over and they hate everything I do and they tell me to go away.
Okay, never go to sleep angry. It's funny, my wife actually, because we try to live by that particular principle, and she got a pillowcase with those words on it and a picture of us at our wedding, and I thought that was quite a cute gift for.
Oh, that is cute. I'm here for that.
Yeah. All right. What's your second improv question for me?
Okay, so you are Gohan.
Yes,
And
I am.
you exactly. So and you're getting trained by Piccolo for the Tournament of Power because Goku is off eating food. And this is going to take us several days. So you're getting trained by Piccolo. What music does Piccolo play in the background during your training arc?
Bach and Bon Jovi mixed. Now, Bach is a composer that I relate to because of the fact that he has so much beauty in his music, and I have so much beauty in my face as being Gohan. Beethoven. Hold on. Was the next person Beethoven or? Yeah,
It was Bon Jovi. Bon
Bon
Jovi.
Jovi, because I live on a prayer, and I'm halfway there. So that's why those two would be my, my motivational or my background music as I'm training. My third and final question for you, and this one's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a little curveball-y. Let's say you're driving down the street one morning, 4 a.m. Okay, the sun's just starting to poke over the hilltops. You see a canoe fly in the middle of the street, and inside that canoe are 3 guinea pigs. Behind the guinea pigs, one ant. You pull the ant out, put him on your shoulder, drive to Mount Everest, climb to the top. When you're there are 3 mountain goats that look like your 3 best friends. You give 3 of them an apple, and then you walk down again. Find yourself in a hut, and in that hut there are 3 plates. What was the first animal I said in the story, and what was their name?
So that's a trick question because you said there were 3 of them and they were guinea pigs. And their names are Huey, Louie, and Pooey.
I thought you were going to say Thick Thunder. I wanted a throwback to
Oh, I
Thick
should have
Thunder.
said Thick Thunder. Oh man, I'm the worst. Why
That
do you
would have
put up with me?
that would you're very good how you kept up with all of that. All right, today we're actually talking about anime villains, and that's why I'm wearing Shigaraki's cape at the moment in my video. If you're just listening, just imagine me with a raggedy cape type thing, looking like a disintegrating white-haired monster. Bjorvio, what are you wearing?
Uh, I am wearing. Um, I'm gonna be real. I am wearing socks with Sukuna on them because if you're not walking with the direction of Sukuna, then you will step in every puddle of water imaginable.
That makes sense, actually. That's a quote that I live by. So villains. Now I thought before we talk about villains that we really are impressed by,
Hmm.
we could come up with maybe three basic principles that sum up what it is to be a good villain in our eyes. Like what was the first principle that you felt sums up a good or a bad villain?
I think a good villain needs to have an intimidating presence because there's so many like lower rank villains early on in series where they're just like, "Oh no, this guy's gonna come after me. I better run. Hurry, hurry." And it's like, "Oh, that's not intimidating," versus somebody who walks up and they're just bow before me, you mortal. You know what
So
I mean? Like,
yeah, intimidation needs to be one factor, and I suppose what comes into play when I hear the word intimidation as a whole, I'm looking at my villain list right now, and I'm just thinking on my list itself, probably the hero killer stands out as intimidation. He's on my list in
mm-hmm.
regards to being an intimidating villain. Who would you say is on your list that's intimidating?
Oh, that's easy. Fuhrer King Bradley from Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood.
Nice choice. And I think it's obviously his dub voice actor. I listen to the dub, but his dub voice actor does an incredible job at voicing him, and it brings off the intimidation, but also his lines, the way he carries himself. He's an intimidating, scary, and I think what makes him intimidating also, he doesn't show his emotion tremendously. He keeps
Mm-mm.
quite a straight, serious face as he's going through his day to day, and I don't know of many other villains that tend to do that.
No, I can think of one other on my list that shows their emotion, but it's like but it's very like, they're joyful about what they're doing versus I got another one that is very cool, calm, and collected, and then until they're not. And then it's like, well, which one's more intimidating, the unhinged version or the hinged version?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. My goodness, my washing machine. This is the perks of having a small house. Your washing machine goes. I feel like Sukin is actually coming for me right now, based on the vibrations behind me. Um,
Domain expansion.
yeah,
Malevolent shrine.
I thought you were gonna say washing machine twist or something like that.
Should
Um,
have.
you should have, could have, didn't. But my so intimidation is a big one. Another one I thought of being a good villain is intelligence. Would you say that's a
Oh,
factor?
100%. I think some of the most effective villains in anime have some level of, they don't have to be the smartest person in the show. Like take Tomura Shigaraki is a fantastic villain who for most of the series is actually not that smart. It's not until later on he actually gets smarter and or maybe more experience and wisdom. I don't know which one it is, but that's when he really starts becoming dangerous. It's not season 1, season 2 Shigaraki that terrifies me. It's season 6 Shigaraki.
Agreed, agreed, because they are always in a bit of a chess match with their opponents. One person that comes to mind is Light Yagami. Um,
Yes.
he's in a chess match. He's smart. He's one step ahead. Another person that's on my list that again really well, an anomaly to this particular. There's one anomaly that I can think of that is not smart, but terrifies me, and that's Majin Buu as a villain.
Yeah, because and I think for Boo, it's more like his powers and just, you know, Boo is doesn't really even know what he can do all that well. He knows some, but like the thing that's scary about Boo is like his personality, the fact that he's so hard to kill.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost that childlike innocence that makes him so terrifying compared or like even Kid Boo who just relies on pure instinct is that's pretty terrifying too. Like I would rather take 10 minutes with Cell than 1 minute with Kid Boo. 100% because I'm not surviving that 1 minute.
Completely agree, and it is his prone. He's got such a destructive quality. He just wants to get rid of everything, destroy everything, and that's his main purpose and motivation in life. As Kid Buu, as certain other Boos, it's to eat or to do different things like that. But I think Kid Buu is definitely the one of the most villains that make me fearful in a way. Just while I was thinking about qualities of a villain, wouldn't lack of what's another word? Lack of compassion, lack of empathy.
Oh, for sure.
Uh,
You,
kind of
and
like yeah.
you
What kind?
know who comes to mind with that the first example and probably one of my all-time favorite villains is Lord Frieza.
Agreed. Agreed. He hasn't changed. He's always, even though he works with, like in the Tournament of Power, he works with Goku and Vegeta and them. He works for his own interests. That's all it actually is.
Yeah, and I'm totally okay with that. In fact, I prefer that. I don't think every villain needs a redemption arc, and that's part of what makes Frieza so good. That's what makes people like Sukuna such a phenomenal thing. Sukuna's never going to get a redemption arc, and it should stay that way. You know what I mean? Like and he doesn't really have that empathy either. He's got that little bit of cockiness to him of like when like that I'm thinking that scene in the Shibuya arc when he shows up on scene and Jogo is throwing this fireball and he just goes, "If you move, I will kill you." With the biggest smirk on his face. He's, "Don't move. Don't move." Okay, now. Like he just commands that scene. He has no empathy for them. He doesn't care at all. And I think that's what makes it Sukuna so amazing, but it's even more so like definitely Lord Frieza or even going back to Kid Buu.
Agreed, agreed. That's an incredible example of a villain. Sukuna definitely has made my list overall. What about All for One?
All for One actually didn't make my list because I feel he's not unoriginal, but he's definitely terrifying. But a lot of things that make him successful, I feel other villains do slightly better. He is an intimidating and great villain, but somebody from My Hero that did make my list, and I'm actually very surprised they did because most of the traits we've talked about have nothing to do with this villain. But I think another trait that I find very key in a villain, which this one did as well, is the villain has to somewhat be right. You know what I mean? Like if the villain is 100% wrong, it's like, oh, well, they're a villain, but whatever. But Shigaraki makes a good point. Hero Society is kind of falling. Um, and so I think that's what makes him such a terrible villain. But the one I was thinking of for My Hero was actually Jean Bubai Gawara or Twice. Twice would
Hmm.
be a great hero. And his motivations are very similar to that of the heroes. He's just on the villain side.
You make a really good point because of the fact that, Deku was saying when he fought Gentle Criminal is why the fight was so tough was because he empathized or sympathized with Gentle Criminal so much, and he could have been in Gentle Criminal's situation so easily. So yeah, that makes a really, really smart point. Because as a viewer of the series, you want to not back them, but you understand what they're going through. You understand their motivations, and that takes some of the fear out of them, but it allows you to understand them better, and also as a viewer maybe root for them a little bit more as well.
Yeah, and I think Twice is one that I would root for. And then in Demon Slayer, Upper Moon 3, Akaza is one of those that I'm like, you are meant to despise this guy in the very same way of like von Hohenheim. But there's some things that happen later on where I'm just like, Akaza is my favorite villain in Demon Slayer, 100%. I can't really go into why, but it's a reason similar to, some other villains here and there, but um but he's one of those that I understand what happened to him. I understand like why Twice ended up the way that he did, or Toga, Shigaraki, and I think My Hero does a really good job of making you sympathize with the villains versus like Dragon Ball. You're not supposed to like any of those. Like, what is there redeeming about Cell or Frieza, where you're like, oh yeah, you know what? If I was in their position, I would do the same thing. No, no, I wouldn't.
Again, the only difference to that is Majin Buu when he meets that little blind boy.
Yes.
That's such a special, special moment because it shows vulnerability and kindness on behalf of the villain. But that's obviously before they split apart and the evil part and the good part goes away. But a special mention that I'd like to bring up is Mewtwo as a villain.
Oh, 100% yes.
He's intimidating. He's intelligent. He is powerful. He's not necessarily cruel. He could be
No,
considered as cruel now and again. Maybe the way he, but I like him as a villain. What's your thoughts?
I agree. I like him as a villain. And I the thing is with Mewtwo number one, I again going back to a point I made earlier, I don't think Mewtwo's wrong. I think he, is he misguided? Yes, 100%. But I feel bad for him. That does that justify everything he does? Well, no. But Mewtwo as a whole is a good villain that has a decent redeeming quality to him. Though a lot of times when they portray Mewtwo now, I'm like, now he's just good and boring. He was more interesting as like a villain or at least an anti-hero.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Team Rocket along the same lines. I like them as people, and they are among the fabric of Pokemon just as much as Ash and Pikachu is, in my mind. You understand they're just trying to make a living in many senses, but they also are doing some terrible things. As a child, I was always not freaked out, but I was always obviously rooting for them to be blasting off again. But that's a bit of a special mention for me. Do you have any other special mentions to bring out?
Well, I have a philosophy question given your love of this series and my love of this series, because I went back and forth on this character. And do you consider Koro Sensei to be a villain?
Great question. Really good question. And great question. I might need some more time to think about it, but on the surface, no. On the surface, no. Due to the fact that it wasn't necessarily his fault that he turned into that. Um, He does act like a villain near the end. I need to think. That's a really good. What was your conclusion?
My conclusion is I think, and this goes back to a lot of other villains that were on this list. I think it depends on your perspective. From the government standpoint, he made a threat against the world. So, yes, he would be classified as a villain. But if you're one of the students in E-class, no, Koro Sensei's not the villain. Some of the other people in the series are, but to them, they're doing the right thing. So, who is the main villain of Assassination Classroom? And the answer is, I don't know. I think it depends on your perspective. And I think in many circumstances, that is kind of another quality of a villain. Like, take Shigaraki, for example. For many, many people, Shigaraki is right. And that he is the right one versus Hero Society, including Deku in Class 1A, they're the villains.
I like that. I like that. That's very. You're bringing out some killer points. I'm throwing curveballs like boom, 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 and you're just smacking them for home runs. And then doing a 3-point touchdown on them. So it's incredible. It's incredible. I'm amazed. This conversation needs to be continued somewhat, because I am intrigued, and I have missed you tremendously. And these conversations make me stronger as a human and sharper as a villain. I mean, person. So
Our conversations are your villain origin story.
So, because of timing factors, maybe you could take us out, or maybe actually I can ask you one final question, and you can take us out as someone. Would that be okay?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. My final question to you, Bakugo, is: do you think you would have made a better villain or better hero?
What kind of question is that? Do you even watch the show? Of course I'd make a great hero. I'm gonna be the better hero than that nerd Deku. I'm gonna be the greatest hero, world's #1 hero. If you think otherwise, you clearly were only paying attention to season 1 and season 2.
Kachan, I really don't think that's what he's getting at. Many people actually thought you would have turned to the villain side really early on, and
They're only idiots, Deku! We've been over this!
it doesn't make them wrong, and they're not idiots. It's not a bad thing to have an opinion, Kachan.
It is if it's wrong.
Thank you. That is awesome. That is great. Well, thank you for listening, everyone. I really appreciate you listening to our show. I don't care if people listen, because the best part of it is talking to you, Bjorvio. But it's nice that people do. So thank you very much. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks again, everyone. And
Plus-
don't forget to go beyond plus
Ultra.
and scene.